This is Wow! What a week. What a week.
To what a week. Today, Saturday, the 28th of September 2024. We are live. Get to tell a friend, because some people don't know. It never happened. So when you are on YouTube, go to the live tab, press the live tab, and you'll find last week's episode and today's live session.
And you can put on comments there and questions and
Absolutely.
all the wonderful things.
In fact, whatever's been on your mind about the week that has been, we'd love to hear from you.
No,
fact,
thanks.
Before we get into our main topics of discussion, let's quickly discuss the snow disaster last week. Because you work for a
transport
agency. People and rains pass in terms of not have happened.
Morning happened. Morning follow us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not of any department. It's in personal capacity, and I think I've heard the laments of the people that the government was not prepared and it didn't handle the disaster very well. They knew from the South African Weather Services Bureau.
Yes.
I think 7 days in advance that there will this kind of snow abnormally at this time of the year, and the people were saying the major complaint. People don't. Family members were also holiday in that area. Was there that should have closed the highway or the affected area? People must use bypasses instead of being stuck on snow.
Yes,
that's one of the laments. If the government knew, but I came out in defense and I was lambasted to, but we had planned area well in advance. And first,
what did the warnings look like?
Look, for me, the warning is part of traveling. When you plan a trip, and this is something that I learned when I joined the transport family, years back. I always ask, why are the ministries or departments of transport in the world are always called transport and meteorology?
Sure.
Transport and weather services. They're also linked. I never understood what's the link. But when I to historically when ships had to sail, when boat
Absolutely.
The corridor learner license is to say you must check the water, check the vehicle, check the road, check where you are going, listen to the news. So people should, and not to embark or themselves to volunteer to take a bypass. I don't say, and I don't take the responsibility away from the state. I'm not saying that. I'm saying.
So was there a warning that if you're taking this route, there'll be snow?
There was warning. There was warning from weather services to say there'll be heavy snow and even
from weather services to whom though?
To the government, and the government, the provincial department of transport in KZN and the national department of transport, they issued statements 1 or 2 days before to say people who had planned to travel there, they must be careful. They if possible, they went to an extent of saying, if possible, do not embark on the trip if you can change or cancel it. One of the transport, bus, it was a school bus from Gauteng with children. I think the principal of that school, the school governing board, the parents of those children were very irresponsible to can put them on the trip when they should have known. And somebody will say, well, they don't watch the news. They don't understand.
Hence, I'm saying that as much as it's on us as travelers to plan our trips and to make sure that we know what might not happen on the trip, to a certain extent, you have to look at, does the average person know what a level 3 warning is? What's a level 6 warning? And is there enough education on that? On top of that, given that we have access to cell phones, for instance, I'll give an example. In Hawaii, there was a disaster, but the system in Hawaii is such that your cell phone will be pinged if you are in an area of a disaster,
Of a disaster
to say to
to be
you,
saved, yeah.
to say to you that this is what is going to happen, go find higher ground or leave this area. We have access to all of the technology,
Experience
but we
fresh.
don't use it.
Experience.
The thing is, we can't wait for the disaster to happen
And then you
to
react.
say, oh, flip, we're not problem.
Yeah.
It might be, but every time it happens, drainage issues,
blockage.
the drains are blocked, there's no water flow. I never
Just today. Because June and July itself, I mean, I've several times. It's a disaster area, actually. Whether it's rainfalls, whether it's cold, even when it's cold and not, you get what they.
Oh yeah.
And I think the government can work on that, but the people must also. What I'm emphasizing on is that we must take the responsibility. People are on TikTok and YouTube and everything else to check all them gossips and the wrong things about the country, but they never check things that impact on their lives. We have to add to that as well. There must be a national responsibility that we take as human beings before we start blaming the state.
Absolutely.
You understand? So for example, I think the majority of the people who were stuck there, if they would have taken the responsibility to check the weather, to check the warnings, they would have not driven to that road. The complaints to government would have been lesser.
Sure.
For people who said, I didn't check the weather, I don't even know what is level 8. Even myself being in the transport family, I don't know what is level 8 of storm warning, and because I normally don't. When there's disaster periods or warnings and all that, naturally, I don't even drive at night.
Yeah.
So those are some of the responsibilities that road users can take. You know, imagine if you fly a jet in that, or a helicopter in that weather, and you say the government didn't prepare itself enough so that when my chopper crashes, it's still part of transport.
Yeah, but the thing is, don't forget that protocols for air travel are
different from road.
And you know, air travel people are held to a way higher standard.
They behave better than road users
because you have to be licensed at a higher standard than us who drive.
Then let's up the standard.
It's bad enough we don't even need a license to raise a human being. We should even be licensing raising human beings. The broken people are the raising human beings.
You know what? Let's get to our politics. You know what I like about one of the comments of last week.
Yeah.
One of the viewers was saying, "Hey, Uncle Tat and Uncle Pia are informing us while they're also entertaining us." There, that was so funny to see that.
In fact, the comments are open, so feel free to let us know what you think.
Yeah.
For me, the long and the short is this: let's not be a reactive people. Let's be proactive. Yes, we generally don't live in a disaster-prone area, but let's be ready for whenever a disaster does strike. That we don't look back and we're crying.
That's fair.
We don't look back and we're trying to release funds because now there's a disaster. And people need to be relocated or have housing, makeshift housing built for them.
And there's political hyenas there who will put their hands
and then
into
it
those
becomes
funds. It becomes a problem.
It becomes political football. Now I'm taking a picture next to a shack with someone who's lost the entire family, saying, "Oh no, I hear for you."
No, I
but
hear.
Are
I
we
hear,
really
brother.
there for them?
I hear you, brother. When I go back to work,
Yes,
these are some of the ideas I'll put on the table.
Absolutely. Oreo McT on YouTube says, "Diaboa Kotwane." So the capital without an executive mayor.
Oh yeah, Oreo has read our mind.
Celia Brink has been, well, he was booted out.
Yeah,
he lost the vote of no confidence.
The vote of no confidence.
But the DA saying they're going to fight on. In fact, is it Solim Simang?
Yes.
Who are saying that we're going to fight, and we're going to fight to have him re-elected as soon as a new mayor has to be elected.
Look, Tato, you remember last week we spoke about it to say come Thursday, 2 days ago, Brink will be out. The writing was on the wall. Remember, they needed Action SA, and Action SA has not been picking off. And if you look at the margins as well, Remember, the ANC also has a big number there. They are a leading party in the Tshwane.
Sure.
So yes, Brink lost, and you know what was funny is and you know, watching those videos and snippets of shot of what was happening there, it made me recall how one of the negative things that followed Brink, it's immediately when the DA took over, when he took over specifically, actually. There were chaos with you know, employees, no salary increments,
with the
people were
unions.
not paid, and unions,
Yeah.
and I think they started on the wrong foot,
Yeah.
mess up with the unions, and then hold on a little, not behave like Kaizer Chiefs fans. You may see Brink coming back after 14 days, and I'll tell you why. After the vote of no confidence on Thursday, all seemed well. And I actually, you know, in a WhatsApp group and said to the leader of the ANC in Tshwane, Mr. Maepa, Kosi Maepa, to say, hey, bro, this is long overdue. I hope they will give you this. Because the ANC has a policy on coalitions. They've crafted a document that is guiding them to say where they are in majority, they must take the lead of the establishment, whether it's provincial or local or no, municipal. So logically, that says to me, where they've got more numbers, there must be the mayor. But I like what
and not do what they did to us in Johannesburg.
In Joburg, yes.
Yeah.
But what I like about the ANC Secretary General, one of the people that I you know, enjoy listening to in Gauteng, TK Ngiza,
yeah,
was saying, but we are not hostile with our policy position. We are prepared to go and engage with other political parties, even if we are in majority. If another political party wishes to have the mayorship in exchange of a speaker, numbers of MMCs, it's okay, we can engage on that. That is how you negotiate it. That's how you get into negotiations. However, yesterday, fresh on Friday, the tone changed. And that's why whoever the commentator says Diabua Kotwani, because suddenly the ANC on Thursday evening and Friday morning in Gauteng, and they had to engage with the national leadership. And you remember 2 weeks back, I said the DA said, should Brink be removed, hell will break loose nationally.
Sure.
I've said it on the show. It looks like the ANC is changing the tone. From, if I read what the spokesperson of the ANC said last night in Tshwane, after engaging with the national and the provincial leadership, it looks like there's a change of tone from what they're saying. They're talking in tongues. They are no longer saying, Brink, it's gone, we're putting our person there. You know, as recent as last night. And concurrently with that, the DA started issuing statements that no, we're bringing Brink back. Give us the 14 days, we're bringing Brink back. He's going to come and recontest and we'll do everything under the sun to get him into power. Now, these are the 2 major political parties that have signed a coalition agreement or the government of provincial or national or local unity agreement. And it comes from the top.
And in fact, Msimanga of the DA was saying Lesotho is pushing against national leadership.
Yes,
that we have agreements in place.
Yeah, but who is Msimanga to can tell Lesotho on what is happening in the organization in a much more better position? So, no, I'm not fighting my national leadership. And the Gauteng ANC has come and said that, to say, we are not fighting, we're not differing with our national, we are engaging with our national leadership. Most important, what Gauteng has done, what ANC is doing in Gauteng, it's what President Ramaphosa himself said jokingly the other day to the people. It's you who voted like this. We are doing the way you have voted. You didn't give us a outright winner. So you'll get a little bit of that and a little bit of that. And that is what Lesotho is doing actually. But the Gauteng is doing it just here to say whoever is in majority must take the leadership of the municipality. And I think that's where the difference is. Gauteng is saying where ANC leads, ANC must lead. When they lead in numbers, they must lead in occupying a strategic positions like the mayor and the speaker. And I think, look, guys, if you are talking democracy, that is correct. That is right. If the majority of the people in Tshwane gave the African National Congress about 88 seats, if I'm not wrong, then let those 88 seats. And this is where we are going to test the think the action essay were satisfied with that. Tshwane has a deputy mayor.
Yes, sir.
And in my book, she has been doing very well and they've been very happy. I don't think it will make sense for them to want to elevate her to be the mayor against the ANC numbers. It will not make sense. But I don't think that's where the problem is. I don't think the problem is with Action SA. I think the problem is with the arrangement and the agreement between the ANC and the DA, which does what? It leaves the EFF isolated. Into this position again, or successfully win this due to the EFF numbers in Tshwane. The EFF played a pivotal role. But we know that the DA does not want to work with the EFF in any form of government.
Yes.
Again, there's an influence of Ekurhuleni. There's a compromise in Ekurhuleni where the mayor of Ekurhuleni has told the ANC province actually in the last 2 weeks to say, I think I must still bring the DA into council and I must award them with MMC's position in Ekurhuleni, in the spirit of government of national unity, in the spirit of our national directive. So Gauteng has a very serious problem. It's a small little tiny province with big numbers but very influential. They're having a challenge. It will not surprise me. On this one, it will not surprise me if Brink comes back. And you know what it will say, actually? The relationship, the coalition, the marriage, and the agreement between the ANC and the DA is solid.
Sure.
If Brink comes back, it will mean it. So the ANC will sacrifice anybody except the Democratic Alliance. But let's wait for, 14 days? There's 12 days to go now.
Up to 14 days.
Yes. They have up to 14 days. I think they will drag it until the last day in order to clear off some of these challenges.
Ntols in the comment section says, is it not interesting how the DA did all in its power to try keep Brink in power, but they were nowhere to be found when it was Mayor Mpho Phalatse, Dr. Phalatse in Johannesburg? What are your thoughts of that?
Fresh, that person is very observant, and it's one of the people who are not in denial that the DA uses its black members when it suits them. Once you
as a means to an end.
Once you have achieved the intended objective, they discard you. They didn't only do it with Mpho Phalatse. They've done it with almost all of them, their spokespeople. If you look at what they've done with Mmusi Maimane, who led them very well, under Mmusi Maimane, the number of black people in the DA went up.
Yeah, but they're saying he lost them numbers at the election.
With their own internal election. No, but domestically, there was a challenge, obviously. The EFF was born. Other parties consolidated themselves. And what are they saying about that? Why are not they saying the same thing with Steenhuisen? He lost numbers at the elections. But Steenhuisen is a white person. Mmusi is a black person. That's why they're also doing that with Brink. But if people are still going to deny the country, the Democratic Alliance is a white liberal party representing the interests of white people, then they will never know and understand politics. Black people who are there, they are only required when it's time for placards and toy and the voting. That's
free t-shirts.
Yeah, and once it comes to the limelight, they will discard you. You understand? So I think it's got a well observation. They're still going to fight. They didn't just fight. They're still going to fight. They are saying Brink will come back. And I've said already, it will not surprise me. But it will change the ANC. This is where the political position of the ANC will be read. And by the way, I've listened to Mavuso Msiman the other day of the ANC. The political position does not mean you must think black for the ANC. Does not mean you must think like a liberation movement. They think for today, they think on the current conditions of the country at the moment. And for them, it's not about liberation movement, not about black and white. It's about who they can go to bed with and who they can work better with. Before elections start, you will recall, I'm one of the people who said it will make policy sense for the ANC to work with the DA because they've got liberal policies. We must not talk historical stuff. Historically, no. But when you look at the way ANC, it's a center, more right party with noise on the left because of the Communist Party and alliance to the labor movement. But when you look at how the ANC has conducted itself from 1994, it's a liberalist party, it's a pro-capitalist, it's a pro-market-based organization, and they are not shy to even say, we are a market-orientated political party. And I think it has not, dwell well into our system to say, by the way, the ANC, the liberation movement, and the ANC, the political party, are two separate entities.
Sure, absolutely. You are checking out Wow What a Week, #Politrix. myself, Fresh Tato Sikwani. It's weird saying my own name. And Botsang Moiloa. We are live on YouTube, so your live comments are most welcome. The Sheila man is lamenting the connection. We are sorting out the connection issue, Sheila man. But thank you for your concern and your comment. Let's talk repatriation of mortal remains of liberation movement heroes
Yes.
that died in exile.
Exile.
And in fact, this story reminds me of a Vernon Nkadimeng. Vernon Nkadimeng was literally a neighbor in Gaborone, Botswana. So there was our house, my neighbor, the block of flats Vernon Nkadimeng stayed at. Vernon Nkadimeng was killed in a car bomb explosion.
Wow.
And we were in class. I remember it was about 10 a.m. We were in class. And so my school was 6 houses from my house. Vernon Nkadimeng's flat was 3 houses from my school. So when this car bomb went off, it literally rattled
the school. Yeah,
it rattled the school buildings. And I remember half of us ran, like literally hid under our school desks. So when we go home, we're told that no, there was a car bomb and that Vernon is gone. I mean, we were children. I mean, we were like 11, 12 years old. So we never interacted with him, but we knew him. He was a nice guy. He was a young guy. He was a young, cool dude. And all of a sudden we're told, no, he's gone. He's gone. In a car bomb. And when you look at the attacks that used to happen, cross-border attacks by the ASNDF, whether it was Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, Mozambique,
as far as in some instances to Zambia, they will go there in Angola.
Absolutely. So a lot of those people were probably never buried at home.
Yeah. Well, Fresh, look, my only lament with this, I think it is a good thing. It happened on the Heritage Month in South Africa.
Sure.
And the Heritage Month that I have a problem with and I always question. Nonetheless, I can't always go against the tide. But it took too long, Fresh. You know, especially for liberation fighters that we knew. Let me tell you on record that there are thousands of South African liberation fighters who died abroad. Some were killed, according to the reports we are getting, by the liberation movement themselves. Some were assassinated by and some they were never buried formally.
Sure.
One of the people whose mortal remains were brought back to the country this week on Wednesday is the one of the former leaders of the PAC. John Nyati-Pukela, who actually was a president of the PAC that time because he was the central chairperson of the PAC, and after Robert Mangaliso on in 1978. So before Zephania Mutupeng was elected the president in 1987, 1988, he was the president. He died in Harare. He was given a state funeral by the Zimbabwean authorities. So
this was years after Mugabe became president.
Exactly, 1985. Yes. Now, why did it take us so long when we knew where the mortal remains were? Because it was a proper burial. And as those that were identified, one of them was the former PAC leader in Lesotho, Potlako Lebalo, and many other ANC. Duma Ganokwe, for example, the former Secretary General of the ANC. He was a key figure in the ANC, and SG for that matter. They knew where he was. You understand? Because it was not one of those that disappeared in exile. So I think it's good that it has happened. And with this, about 47 of them, but there's thousands that are still missing out there. We all know that 1976 youth leader who was last seen in Conakry, in West Africa. Nobody knows where's the mortal remains of some of these youth or people are. And I think because these countries that hosted South Africa during their exile years, they had a coordinated effort. Most of them, they were either camps, refugee camps, or they knew what happened. So I think the government must put more efforts, both automatically consular services, and engage those governments. Yes, there's been change of governments in those countries to can bring the mortal remains of these people back home. The nice thing they've done is just bury them as again. They're giving the mortal remains to families to can put closure, which is, you know, in an African tradition and custom. It's very important for families to bury their loved ones.
I was listening to Talk Radio 702, and they were interviewing a family that says they found out on the radio that the mortal remains of their loved one are coming home.
no, that's bad. You see, I was not aware of that. I thought it was a well-coded exercise. If that's the case, then it was very bad to say, mortal remains of a family member. Who did they contact? Who did they talk to? How did they know that person belongs to which family? They should have engaged the family. African families are very big families. They can always be traced and engaged. But thumbs up, let them work better on this. What I was a bit uncomfortable them is being called, what would they call them? The liberation heroes and fighter. Look, for me, the struggle for the liberation, those people died for the land.
Sure.
Those people died for an absolute liberation. And I listened to President Ramaphosa talking and saying they died for the land, they died for the liberation of us to be where we are today. We are not where we are supposed to be as a country. People formed the Native National Congress before 1912, formalized it in 1912. It became the ANC when it adopted the Freedom Charter and all that, in order to fight for the return of the leadership in the country. It's a problem. It hasn't changed. We are seeing sporadic, incidents of racism. People being shot at and fed to pigs. People, businesses in Repatriation Dam, just here, 45 kilometers away, being destroyed based on racism. And we can sit and talk about it. There's a human rights commission, can sit and listen to cases. But for as long as, the same as corrupt politicians, for as long as we don't jail racist people, people who go, and we must send them to jail and put it in a public space, that the public must see that the government is acting. At a moment when there's racial attacks in South Africa, whether it's farm attacks or whatever, whether it's robberies, or we make noise when people are killed, when people are being discriminated against. Then we keep quiet. We don't follow up these cases to see how the perpetrators were punished or were brought back to book. We end up in making noise to say there's racism and it ends there. And we don't even know if these people end up being jailed for this, inhuman conduct. And I think, some, families, I know quite a number of families that have lost their loved ones who went into exile and they never came back. And you can now imagine the anxiety of saying others received their children or their loved ones and others did not. And I think the government must put a little bit extra effort.
I'm happy it's happening. Critics might say it's 30 years later, but I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah.
So that families can get full closure.
Full closure. Exactly.
Because it's never too late for full closure.
Exactly.
But I'm also hoping it will be an ongoing exercise. Because like you're saying, hundreds, if not thousands of people died outside of the borders of the country and were never repatriated because...
Look, it may also, open some wounds. You understand? I mean, one of the things that I always talk about, and I know it's a very thorny issue, that there were people who were killed in exile camps by the leaders of the liberation movement, by their own comrades, as suspects of being askaris or sellouts or whatever, or sometimes indifferences. We have read in many articles and books that even the leader of controversies, Mr. Hani, before he was the leader, the late Chris Hani, he was one of the people who were supposed to be executed, but he, survived, or something happened that he was not killed. But there were people who were killed, and not only in the controversies camps, whether it was in Apla or Azanla camps, Azanla, which is the liberation army of Azapo at the time. There were casualties amongst, there are people who were also killed by the forces of the host country.
Sure.
Because of, sometimes misconduct. And so we should open up all those things and clean.
Okay, I am listening and watching from Jim, loving the live show. That's Mrs. Ole in the United Kingdom. Let's talk about the judiciary, the NPA, police services, and if they are materially imbalanced, if they are racially imbalanced, And like you often say, if they're captured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but Tato, this was brought into my mind by the 2 or 3 things that happened in the last week.
Yes, sir.
One as recent as 2 days ago, the court decision on Dr. Hlope, the former Western Cape judge president, and look, we are having a politician now. This is where the 3 arms of the state.
Okay, so for those that don't know, what was the court decision?
Okay, the court decision was that Dr. Jan Hlope has been suspended from being a member of the Parliamentary Committee on the Judicial Service Commission.
It's the same committee that impeached him.
It's the same committee that impeached him.
Okay.
Okay, it's a parliamentary committee. But
Yes.
where I bring politics and government administration in is that the government always talk, or South Africa is a constitutional democracy. We talk of the 3 arms of the state that are operating independent from each other. Now, Parliament, or the National Assembly, as we officially call it, has taken a decision, or it has its own rules and regulations on appointing people. And they have their criteria.
Sure.
According to the National Assembly rules and regulations, Dr. Hlope has met the criteria of being a member of parliament, of serving in any of those committees. He has met the criteria. Now, a political party and an NGO and some civil movement, which is AfriForum Democratic Alliance and one NGO, I just forgot the name. They stand up and they approach who? They don't approach and confront the National Assembly. They take the National Assembly to the 2nd arm of the state, which is the Judicial Authority. And that's where my problem is. What now the Judicial Authority has made a decision to can hold back Judge Hlope's service on the Judicial Service Commission. It's a service. You're not a judge there. You are a member of a committee. They've held it back.
And probably have more experience than anyone else in the committee.
Probably more than any other legal person in Parliament. the billions, if not trillions, of rands that the country lost due to the Kusile power station failures and the looting and the robbery. We have lost, businesses are closed. People have lost lives because of what you call load shedding. There were hospitals where machines went off, kids incubators were not working. So the looting of ESCOM created murder as well.
Yes.
In a normal country, some of these people will be charged for murder, understand, as well, because
Sure.
their action resulted people losing their lives. And we are not doing anything with them.
And the actions were premeditated.
They were
so,
premeditated. That's
yeah.
another thing. They were premeditated. That's why I call it murder.
Mm.
Understand? And we let them negotiate with the state. What are they negotiating? What is the NPA? How do you negotiate with the TAC? First of all, right now, the police commissioner of KZN is not negotiating with TACs. If they shoot at the police, they kill them. We are clapping hands. But our law and other entities of law, the National Prosecuting Authority, the courts, and everybody else is negotiating with criminals that are costing this country trillions of rands that could be aiding with unemployment and other issues we are faced with.
In fact, speaking of murder, there's another case that made headlines this week. A soldier who intentionally infected his girlfriend with HIV,
Oh yes,
who's been sentenced to life in prison.
Yes.
Because apparently he intentionally, knowing he was HIV positive, removed the condom without her consent.
Yeah.
Which also then made it a rape issue because he stealthed, as it's called. Stealthing is removing the condom without telling your partner that you've removed the condom.
Yeah.
And the courts have seen that as rape. So my question is this. I agree that anyone who intentionally infects another person with anything is a shitty person and should go to jail.
Yes.
But the minute we talk about attempted murder,
Yep.
what are we saying of the fact that an HIV positive status, in the bigger scheme of things, is not a death sentence?
It's not a death sentence.
You can live another 50 years on one pill a day. And are we not reversing the gains we've made against stigma? Because the stigma generally is, I'm HIV positive, I'm dying tomorrow. I'm dying tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as much as I agree that someone must be thrown in jail for a very, very long time, I don't know if it's attempted murder.
It's again, you are bringing up the overreaching aspect.
Yeah.
The judiciary is overreaching, and they're even doing a mistake against another government entity. The health sector has been saying, guys, HIV is not, a death sentence. And I agree with you. I think it's far-fetched. Understand? You can say that did that person die because of HIV? No, the person is still alive. He was infected with HIV by this person. First, it's a very thin line you can come to those areas. In that case, the sentence happened this week. But it's a very old case. It's few years old. And again, does the court say so when you are HIV positive, you should be knowing that you are going to die, you are going to kill somebody? Then the court is wrong. Then the court is absolutely wrong, because that guy can call medical experts to come and testify and say, but that is not true. And also you look at, do we want to go and charge the Minister of Health and the president of this country for infecting people with what now has become evidence, and South African scientists are involved in that process with some Italian scientists, that COVID vaccines are causing cancer and they had an excess of certain toxins? Are we going to charge them for attempted murder? Because in some instances, people like in the health sector, if you remember, people in the health sector, they were not forced to, but they were required. Those words I'm using them very carefully. You can go and vaccinate for COVID and all. Are we saying that we are dealing with quite a number of things? I've spoken in the past about road traffic infringement. You drink, you get into your limousine or your Ferrari, you get into the road, you crash and you kill people. Are we now at a stage where we are charging those people for murder and send them for murder?
In fact, given that Jub was charged with murder, it was murder.
It was the charge.
Then any drunk driver that kills a person must actually get, because the precedent was set.
Yeah, exactly.
That you knowingly went into a vehicle, knowing you're drunk, knowing you're high, And people are dead.
And in that case, if people are not careful, it is set a precedent fresh of saying person does not die.
Yes.
You will be charged with
Attempted murder.
attempted murder. And this week there was a ruling actually of, you remember that reckless truck driver who when there was an accident in KZN,
Oh, yes.
he was also sentenced to an effective 10 years imprisonment this week for murder and all those. So it's judiciary. Well, you know, you must think of them as human beings as well, these judges. You know, there's a lot on their shoulders, but we need to review and revisit our laws. We still have laws that were created during the apartheid era. You understand? And we are applying them, as if things are still the same way. I have a challenge with that I will be sitting in court and some judge or law prosecutor will be reading me the Criminal Procedure Act of 1967. For God's sake, I fought, I was in the battlefield against that law, and it's still applicable today. What are our lawmakers doing? What are our people in parliament doing? We have had 30 years to, you can't write laws in 30 years. I fully agree with that. But we should have at least repealed at least half of the laws that were apartheid era laws, including the Land Act of the apartheid era. You know, repeal it and reverse it completely. But I think our judiciary and our NPA have to up their sleeves. I think there is a lot of racism that is happening in our courts. You know, when we go to courts, I go to courts a lot, not because I'm a noticing, but I always find myself on the wrong side of the law. And you ask yourself if it's a black judge or a white judge, if it's a woman or if it's a man. We still think those because they influence. You know, I was telling people the other day, never go to a divorce court and the judge is a woman. Chances of you a man walking out nice are very slim.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm telling you, are very slim.
So are you saying she's going to apply her emotions and not the law?
In naturally. We are human beings. Judges are human beings. And I have seen it, you understand? And the same with the racism one at the moment. You can see about the way Judge Kloppe's matters are being handled. Again, let's use logic. The Democratic Alliance, going back to the point under discussion, had said you cannot take the person to go and be part of the committee that impeached him. That's part of their argument, man. If I was a lawyer, I would have gone to the Western Cape. And you know what they have said? You cannot bring a man who was the judge president of this court that dismissed him to come and judge him on another matter. Is that fair? Exactly. You understand? Is it fair that Judge Kloppe was in the High Court of the Western Cape where they fired him and he was impeached? Why don't you take him to another court where we say he has no history with that court?
There's no conflict. But judicial minds will say, no, but the law does not work that way. The law says a matter must be heard within a jurisdiction. So Parliament is in the Western Cape, so the Western Cape High Court must hear that. But that's not what I'm questioning. Or even if I question the law, where the law does not make sense, where there is conflict of interest. And again, this goes back to what? All these cases we have mentioned, we are setting precedents as a country. When they happen, they will one day happen to the son of the president. They will one day happen to a minister. They will one day happen to some of them. It will catch up with them when there's judicial overreach. We saw judicial overreach with Justice Zondo and Mrs. Jacob Zuma. These people fought at their homes for being Phoebe. They take their matter to the commission, then they take their matter to court. We as a nation had to deal with who has a child with who's not paying maintenance. I mean, those things came up in court. I'm not making them. Yeah.
They came up in court that one of them is not paying papgeld or maintenance for the child, alimony, and therefore you can see now family battles are being taken to our courts. And where is the law going the line? And for the judges and lawmakers to focus on what they're doing. But this one of Judge Kloppe and the DA and the National Assembly, we must watch carefully how it's going to unfold. That is the court going to tell the National Assembly what to do?
Sure.
As if there are no rules governing. If there is no rule, if it's silent, let them deal with the gray area, the silence area. Don't use one case to create the law.
Yes, sir.
You understand? Make the law. Where there's no law, go and say, oh, there's a gray area here. Law writers in 1993 to 1996, they missed this part. You understand? I mean, I don't want to blame lawmakers of 1993 to 1990 who wrote this constitution. They actually were what we call short-sighted. They never thought the judge will be impeached and come back to serve.
Yeah, but also generally, it's not even about short-sighted. It's never in anyone's wildest judicial dreams would you think something like that would happen.
It happens. That's why there's impeachment. It does happen.
You see, now we know. Now we have the benefit of experience and now know better.
Yeah, now go and make the law that addresses that.
And then also look at other scenarios.
Practices.
What
yes.
else could possibly happen
Exactly.
so that we're prepared?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Not caught with our judicial pants down.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly,
sir.
my brother. Thanks.
Let's go to the UN General Assembly. It's been an interesting week. Whether we talk about Lula, Netanyahu, Ramaphosa. It's been an interesting week at the United Nations.
Look, I let me start with our president.
Yes, sir.
I think, I don't know. I don't know whether it's a gift or what. President Ramaphosa would have made a good foreign minister. He has the ability of switching to the Chinese and the Russians and Iran. He's a different person. Then when he's talking to the West, he's also a different person. It may be a good diplomatic way to can negotiate, but it's also very dangerous because then you've got double standards. It's like you don't have a principled position of what you are doing.
Double dealing.
Yeah, he goes and engaged the United Nations, and he was toned down. It was not that President Ramaphosa who went to the ICJ with Ronald Lamola as the Minister of Justice before Naledi Pandor. He toned down because he's addressing the West. He's addressing, the UN is the West, basically, even if it has countries of the East, but the West is dominating the UN, understand? So for me, the reason I will bring the Lula part in, President Lula da Silva of Brazil, he actually, if you listen to his speech, I actually even printed it. He spoke like he's an African. President Lula spoke about how Africa is the rich continent, but its wealth is being stolen by the Western countries and not shared with Africans. And he was wearing a green, gold, and black tie. I'm very observant of such. I'm like, did President Ramaphosa give President Lula the speech and the tie? He was wearing an ANC color tie, and he was talking as an African. He was talking about the minerals from Sahel to Sub-Saharan Africa and everywhere. And this is the man from Latin America addressing the UN, something that I personally think President Ramaphosa should have brought that thing to the fore. He did raise a number of important issues, the issue of Palestine, the war in Ukraine. He has raised them, thumbs up. But I think he was too toned down, especially looking at where the world is at the moment with all these wars. And my challenge also is him going to tell the West that they are looting Africa. They are taking minerals from our land, and this must stop. Part of those minerals, fresh. Look at it this way. President Ramaphosa has the ink and the pen to can change the laws that the West must stop looting our mines. Somebody comes, and I made an example to friends during the week, and I said to them, somebody comes to your house, takes your kids, your car, your wife, and puts in a corner there and says, I will call you in to come and eat with us or sleep with us in the main house when I want. And you go to that person. The day you have shuttles out, you go to that person and say, can we talk, man? Can we talk? You can't be asking my son to do gardening. He's good in washing dishes. That's what President Ramaphosa is doing. He's going to the West to say to them, you can't be looting our minerals, our gold, our uranium, our platinum. He's got a pen and paper to make laws in this country that will make those foreign agents to stop looting. Simple as that. Why go to them?
I'll raise you a President Lula could have also addressed African leaders.
Yes.
To say, stop allowing yourselves to let your people down by allowing this looting to happen. It's all good saying to the West, stop looting Africa. But if our leaders are saying, you're welcome, it's also your home, that doesn't help either.
I agree with you, but that's what I'm saying. President Ramaphosa was not supposed to go to the UN and raise this issue. He was supposed to go to the parliament, the National Assembly in Cape Town, to the lawmakers or to his cabinet and say, can we draft and change laws? We've got a mining charter.
Yes.
You must actually do what Masisi is doing in Botswana with a mining charter that Zuma left hanging at 27% of the mining minerals to be redistributed in the country. President Ramaphosa is supposed to take this moment. It is his second term, and he's sitting in the government of national unity now, as they call it. He's supposed to go to his cabinet and to parliament and say, guys, no, this mining charter must be brought into effect. For us to stop the looting of our mining minerals, we are going to pass laws. Remember, we are a law-abiding country. We want to stick to what the law prescribes. So for Anglo Ashanti, for Anglo Gold, for Anglo America, and all these mining companies that come from foreign countries to stop taking our platinum, diamond, gold, uranium, you call whatever it is, for them to stop, we must pass the laws. And who has the power to pass the laws? Those bloody 400 MPs sitting there that we have deployed with our votes are the ones with the power, led by President Ramaphosa. They are the ones with the power to change the laws that can make companies. And why are we afraid? You are not afraid to go and beg in front of over 100 nations. You want to go and beg and say, stop looting our resources and take our unfinished product and selling them back to us. You go and you beg, but you are afraid. Where? The West is not there. It's you with your comrades and your fellow lawmakers. You are afraid to stand up and say, guys, let's change this law.
Hence, I say at some stage it needs to stop. We need to stop with the blame shifting and look in the mirror and say,
it's us.
What role am I playing
exactly
in the problem that I am in the first place?
Yeah, I agree with you. And after they do that, these African leaders, you know, I saw a very nasty comment on Twitter saying somebody was saying, can somebody send one missile to the United Nations headquarters? Because everybody's there at the moment. I'm like, that's very nasty. Okay.
It's called a hard reboot.
Yeah, reboot the world. Again, these African leaders, you know, on a lighter note, but for me, it's not a lighter note. I know people say it's a lighter note. There's somebody who went and did an analysis of the arrival of dignitaries at the United Nations. And before they boot out Netanyahu, they say all African leaders, all fresh, not most, all, including our own president, when they arrived with an entourage, the delegation, was all of them more than 10 people. This is the poorest people, or people representing the poor continent. They all were staying in 5-star hotels. All African leaders in New York to the United Nations General Assembly were staying in 5-star hotels.
For security reasons, shouldn't you be staying in a decent establishment?
What security? So are they saying the Prime Minister or the President of France, Macron, is not at risk? Compare Macron and Ramaphosa. Who's more at risk in the world at the moment?
Was he at a 2-star?
Some they stayed in low-cost housing hotels. Some they even shared vehicles. I've learned that the Chancellor of Germany came with a Mercedes-Benz and he gave a lift to the Prime Minister of Luxembourg. They drove in the same car. African leaders, they all had Mercedes-Benzes, limousine, big cars with a convoy of security personnel, staff members, as if they are the world leaders. They are not even leaders in their own countries because Africans don't want them. Africans are rebelling against, they are not rebelling enough. But the people are not happy in this continent about their leaders. Then they stay in 5-star hotels. Then they drive big cars. Then they've got the biggest delegation. What to do at the UN? Two things, despite three, they show off one. But two things that they went there for. They went there for to ask the so-called superpowers to give them 2 seats to allow them seats in the United Nations Security Council. That's the first thing. The second thing they go there for is to go and ask for foreign aid. France, America, please, UK, help us with money, help us with some more billions. Our people are starving. But you rock in a Mercedes-Benz, you rock in a limousine with 10 bodyguards. Again, that's how stupid our leaders are. And I'm using that word very strongly. They're very stupid because no normal person, I can't be a broke father and go to my neighbors to ask for money to can buy my children food. And I rock in with a Louis Vuitton suit, driving in a limousine or a Porsche or a Ferrari. What nonsense is that? And that's what our leaders are doing. They are actually a shame to the face of the world. You know, I saw one of the videos when one of the African leaders, I think the leader from Ghana arrived. Chancellor of Germany was standing there to receive him, you understand? And he was just astonished, you know, at the number of cars that were parking there. Not one, not two, 7, 8 vehicles. And I think African leaders are a disgrace. They are actually a disgrace. They are misrepresenting us. They are wasting our resources. That's why the West will take trillions of uranium and gold and diamonds from our land, and they will donate 1 billion. And that 1 billion, half of it goes to the president and the cronies.
Yeah.
That's what is happening in this continent.
Mm.
Before it goes and build one hospital, and that hospital will cost $500 million. A hospital that costs 100 million will cost $500 million in Africa. And the West, who are donating this money, and I've worked in an NGO, you know, from Denmark that was donating money for Africa. And I've seen how monies are being squandered. Actually, I was employed to stop that. I was appointed to stop our own people from squandering the money. And it's upset. It's hurting that we have African leaders who go to New York and they think they went shopping.
Yeah.
You understand? That's what they do. They go shopping and waste state resources, and the West allows them. But the West will allow them. You know why? We are stimulating their economies. We are big spenders. They give us money. The president steals it to buy their wife a Louis Vuitton bag. When kids in the hospital, they don't have basic.
You also
stuff.
forgot not just the wife and the small house. Let's also mention the small house. Please.
Yeah, and probably the smaller house as well. But again, it's a disgrace what our leaders are doing. And none of them, not even one of them, is calling them to order. Not one African president stands up and say to others, brothers and sisters, let's stop this.
Let's do better. Let's
do better, man. Let's be better people. Not one of them. And people are saying, I'm talking with disrespect when I talk about them. They don't respect themselves.
Yeah.
How do they expect us as citizens of the continent to respect them when they don't respect themselves? You can't tell me out of 54 men. Okay, it's not 54 because we've got some countries like Burkina Faso not being there. Let's say approximately 47 countries go to the UN representing Africa. Not one of them has the brains, functional brains, to say to the others, sons and daughters of the soil, as we call each other, let's go and meet somewhere in a bar or 2-star hotel. And we're in New York, for God's sake. The 2-star hotel in New York is better than some of the official residences in Africa, or some of the 5-star hotels in Africa. You understand? So why wouldn't they do that? What is this exorbitant manner? That's why you find in Africa, you know, slave queens and youngsters thinking that being opulent with material and resources, it's a good thing. It's a sign. They see it from the leaders. They see it from the people who have put into power to lead us. It has looked normal for a township boy whose parents are struggling to want to wear sneakers that are costing 5,000 rands. Because the president is competing with this boy. He's wearing sneakers that are worth 5,000 rands. And that's the kind of leaders we are having. You know, and I think we should start talking about these things. President Ramaphosa must actually drive himself, man. You know, at some stage, he must just say, security, let me drive myself. The man will even lose driving skills. The day we fire him, like we fired Brink, what is he going to do?
At least he's always walking, so he's good experience.
Oh, yeah, he's walking. He's one of the, you know, when you are, it looks like everybody in Cape Town is walking because they've got space and nice places to walk.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's what happened in the UN, and that's very disturbing.
Let's talk about Netanyahu.
Oh, yes, the Prime Minister of Israel, in standing up and addressing the UN, there was a walkout. He was being booed and thumbs up and but look, it's a symbolic gesture to say we don't want to listen to you. And they didn't walk out when he was called in, when was it, just when he started talking. But he continued with the arrogance. He continued to.
Let me tell you something. Every nation could walk out of the General Assembly, and America remain. That's all he wants.
Yeah.
They're like Bonnie and Clyde. That's all he needs in his life.
And they've got a lot of seats there, and it's in their land, so they'll have more Americans sitting there. Even there's administrative people sitting there.
I don't think he cares.
He doesn't care.
And I think generally the global writing has been on the wall in terms of what people feel about the occupation of Palestinian land since the 60s. So I don't think he cares. Netanyahu has never cared, and I don't think he's about to start now.
No, but look, that walk out, look, the world is changing. The world is moving slowly into a different direction. And I think it will dawn into the head of the Americans and Israelis that their time will come when this whole thing will end. I'm starting to think that actually Israel is suicidal. I think they're suicidal. You can't go and be bombing 5-6 countries at the same time, and you are saying to them, bring it on. You understand? You can't be doing that. I think they are calling for a third world war. I think they are calling for a full-scale war. And they must be very careful, because once this war, in my view and opinion, once this war starts, it will not be an Arab-Israeli war. It includes many other countries who have vested interest in that area. And I think the American elections must come as quick as possible to save the world. I still believe the decision in America is going to change the game, especially if Donald Trump, for peace sake in the world, he's a typical American as well, but for peace sake, for the rubbish that is happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Palestine, in Beirut now, Lebanon, I think the arrival of Trump may hold this back a little bit.
But looking at the polls in the US over the past week, Kamala Harris is polling way better than Trump right now.
Yeah, but it's too early. There's still a month to go. It's still look, the media will portray that. Remember, this is about money there, and who has the media, who has the voice in the media. Some people talk better than others. They express themselves better than others. Kamala Harris has been more in the media and public platforms and been liked more, talk things that makes more sense to people. And it defeats Trump, because Trump is a doer. He's not a talker. He's not a good talker. You understand? He's not the best person you can put on a platform. He will start insulting and calling names, telling us how Kamala is not actually black and things like that. And I've seen that somebody in the US has released Kamala Harris' birth certificate that actually says she's not really a black person. But that's neither here nor there. I think the elections in the United States are going to be very important for peace in the world, both in the NATO war with Russia, as well as with what is happening in the Middle East.
Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine says he has a victory plan.
Yeah.
But the victory plan that he feels will bring Russia to their knees and maybe want to negotiate obviously involves them being able to lob missiles into Russia.
Yes.
And Russia are saying, if there are any American missiles or anybody else's missiles in our country, you are declaring war on us.
Yeah, well, Tato, if where will Zelensky get the missiles from if it's not from the UK, the US, and France? You understand? And I think, look, there is no war that is a good war, but I think Russia is correct in this instance. If the USA is going to give Zelensky missiles to can attack Russia in the mainland, then clearly the USA is attacking Russia. And Russia says, I will respond, and I will respond accordingly. I'm not going to be dealing with small fishes. I will respond with my missiles to the owner of those missiles. And all this happens when America is also giving missiles to Israel. Understand? But in the middle of that whole discussion, where Zelensky was making a presentation to NATO, by the way, he's asking for more money and more missiles and more arms to can continue the war. Trump calls in Zelensky. Okay, Trump says it's Zelensky who calls him. You see, President Trump is not diplomatic. He even released the letter that Zelensky wrote to him to ask for a meeting. And one, obviously, President Zelensky, Vladimir, is not happy that Trump went public about this. He wanted it a closed meeting. So he thinks Trump is the bad choice for America. So it's, again, another foreign president is trying to influence elections in the US. Zelensky thinks it's better to have Harris because the Democrats seems to be supporting Ukraine more towards the aggression with Russia. So he says Trump, he first said something very bad about President Trump, and then he asked for a meeting with him to come and explain himself. And Trump is simply saying, but your plan is not going to work. You know, there's no victory plan. But I think Trump is realistic that there will be no victory against
Everyone is
Russia.
losing. Everyone is losing.
Everyone is losing.
Yeah.
And I think he's being realistic. That's why I'm saying he may not be a good talker in a public space, but he's got a practical mind. And I think that's what made President Trump a very good business person. You understand? He thinks practically. They're all losing into this whole thing. And I think Zelensky is also not, diplomatic as a person. I don't know what is he benefiting when his country and his people are losing on this war. If I realize that my people and I'm a leader are losing on a war, I will do everything in my powers to try and bring this war to an end. And he's not doing that. He's not doing that.
Are we happy with everything UN? In the General Assembly?
Yeah, no.
Anything else on your mind?
I've covered the UN and the General Assembly. I think, like I said, the UN is a show off. It's a toothless dog. They sit there every year. They talk nonsense. It never works.
People find about polio, measles.
Yeah. No, give them polio and measles and COVID. They will vaccinate the world a lot.
Let's talk about Friends of Peace in China.
Oh, yes.
What is Friends of Peace, and what are your views and thoughts about that?
Look, first of all, I must bring back the history. I think it's a very good attempt by China.
Yes, sir.
But this comes back from what used to be called IPSA, India, Brazil, South Africa. It was called the South-South Cooperation. India is in the south of Asia, South Africa in the south of Africa and Brazil. Then it became BRICS, which are also, countries of the south that are not members of NATO. Now, what China is doing, China has called in a meeting of countries of the south and who are peace talking as well. You must not just say countries of the south. Countries like South Africa that are talking of peace in the world to say, let's stop all the wars, let's use diplomatic, engagements in order to engage. So China is regrouping those countries to can engage regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, to say, let us use diplomatic platforms. Something that, again, your friend joke, what do you call people who joke? What is his profession? Vladimir Volonsky.
He's a comedian.
Not Vladimir. He's a comedian by profession, by the way. He is again rebuking that, saying, no, China is not doing this in good faith because it's very close to Russia and South Africa is close to Russia. But when you enter into diplomatic negotiations, you bring everybody who's involved on the table. You can't say, I don't want friends of Russia to come and be on the negotiation table. You actually need friends of Russia more.
If it's about peace, you need as much representation as possible.
But I'm even saying, as a peace negotiator, you need friends of your enemy more than enemies of your enemy. You know why? Because friends can sit and convince your enemy to say it is not worth fighting. Mr. Putin, Zelensky is prepared to come to the table and talk. You can't say friends of Putin must not come to the table or must not initiate. You can't want to rely on friends of the North, which is NATO. What Zelensky is doing is he wants NATO to resolve the war. NATO can resolve the war and bring peace in between Ukraine and Russia because NATO is the perpetrator according to Russia.
Sure.
You understand? You can't say they are the ones who should bring peace. The only thing that will bring peace between Russia and Ukraine is NATO. When NATO is an active participant in the war. Now China is doing an attempt to say, let me bring those who are not involved. Let me bring those who have been talking peace. India, Brazil, South Africa, and other countries, Saudi Arabia, come, let's talk to Putin as friends and call a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. What's wrong with that?
But do you think a Putin or anyone else would appreciate what seems like an intervention? Look, that's what it's going to read like. Unless we're all talking peace.
Yes,
but if it's my, my allies calling me to the side, it feels like an intervention.
They are intervening. It's okay. What's wrong with an intervention?
And President Putin doesn't strike me as one that would appreciate an intervention.
No. I don't know. I've got a different view. He's really. Remember, to go to a full-blown war, you need your friends and your neighbors. You understand? So I don't think President Putin will shut down what Jinping, the premier of China, is going to propose. Let's sit and talk. Everybody wants peace. This war, as you said earlier on, everybody's losing in this war. I've read a statement issued by the ministry spokesperson, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia. They are saying they are prepared to engage on any engagement or diplomatic or whatever, but that is not going to stop them from fighting while negotiations are happening, because NATO is not stopping what they are doing. That's the first part. The second part, they are saying they will engage in any diplomatic engagement to can stop what they call a military operation. Remember, they don't call it a war. Russia says this is a military operation to stop NATO from advancing to their shoreline or their borders.
Yes.
You understand? If anything that says NATO, you'll stop what started this war, what broke the 2014 peace accord. Remember, this comes from the 2014 peace accord. Understand? So Russia is saying if anybody says we should talk in stopping that, we will listen, we will get engaged. I don't think smart people who read The Art of War, and I think President Putin is one of those products of the Art of War. People who read the book, who live by The Art of War by the former general, the Chinese general Sun Tzu, they will know that The Art of War actually does not talk about the war. It talks about peace.
Yes.
The Art of War is talking about to avoid war by all means necessary. Only go in when you don't have a choice anymore. So I see President Putin as a person who lives by the art of war, who says, if there's an opportunity, I'm not losing anything. I've already lost during the war. But if there's an opportunity to go into a negotiated peace settlement, and everybody walks happy from the table, I will enter into those negotiations. That's what the art of war prescribes to some of us. But I think this is a good attempt by China. And I think South Africa should be in the middle of that. But you know why China is also pushing for this?
Sure.
They are losing economically. Remember, this thing has an impact on economic trade as well. They are losing. They are friends with Russia, friends with China is trading with everybody in the world, including the US. You understand? To this day, fresh, I sometimes think politicians, even those that I love, like President Putin, are bullshitting us. America to this day is still buying commodities from Russia.
Yes.
They're still buying gas from even under economic embargo and sanctions. So what nonsense is this that these political heads, leaders of the world are saying Russia is under sanctions and they're still buying their commodities because for their own survival? You see the selfish state position of politicians. For their survival, America buys what they need from China. Other countries that are pro Russia are buying commodities like wheat from Ukraine. The other day I talked about how Turkey, which I don't trust Turkey in this war. They seem to be playing double dipping, double standards. Turkey is talking about Russia, this Israel, this must end. We need peace. Hey, Turkey, the pipeline that supplies Israel with gas and fuel, it crosses Turkey.
Yes.
If you want Israel not to have fuel, you must cut that pipeline. Then I will believe that Turkey is doing and telling the truth. But again, they're playing the world. Everybody wants to be seen as a peacemaker. Everybody wants to be seen as I'm the one who brought this peace.
Absolutely.
And therefore I'm the most important person. They don't care about reality on the ground. And some of us are awake enough to realize that they're playing the world with games. The only president that I can trust in this, who does things the way he talks, is Traore in the Sahel, in Burkina Faso.
Yes.
He lives by what he's saying. He doesn't play marbles. He's showing true leadership. And for the people, the rest.
And doesn't hesitate.
He doesn't hesitate.
He makes a call and he goes.
The rest talk left, walk right. Some they don't walk. They are just stuck in the middle. We don't know if they're still existing as countries. They just went silent. I mean, we are busy as Africans worried about the war in Russia and Ukraine. Yes, it impacts us as member of the global community. We are worried about the war of the Palestinian children by Israel. Right now, this past week in Sudan. Remember the paramilitary took over some sections of Khartoum, the capital, a few months back. The military went into fully-fledged war in Khartoum, in Sudan, to reclaim the capital city back. No, nobody's talking about it. You know why? Because they're getting nothing out of Khartoum at the moment. There's nothing to be there. Understand? They are already oiling their oil very well enough on the south part of Sudan, and they are comfortable until this war in Sudan impacts on the oil wells owned by Shell and Best Petroleum of Britain, and it starts impacting foreign nationals. Then the world will talk about it. For as long as it does not impact on their economic and exploitation interest,
it's none of my business.
It's none of their business.
Absolutely. In conclusion,
yes, brother.
Let's talk about Russia welcoming any efforts to stop what they still call this military operation. Do you think there's hope in terms of this thing stopping?
Fresh, this is personal. I think there's hope. I think the fact that Russia is welcoming the efforts,
Yes.
it will stop. I think it's gradually coming. The countries of the world are tired. NATO countries themselves, they can't afford to fund this war anymore.
It's a bucket to the hole.
Exactly. But that's also another thing that has impacted a lot of these countries is Russia now pushing the BRICS decision of trading with own currencies like the ruble. You know, President Putin announced during the course of this week when they were busy in the UN. Remember, he's banned; he can't go there.
Yeah.
Even if they are members, even if they're a permanent member of the Security Council.
But at least he can send a representative.
Yeah, but he was talking about how Russia has clocked over 40% on international trade and payments with the ruble, the currency. They've kept the dollar out, and he says it's increasing. And that's 40% with their own currency. We haven't counted the currency of the countries that they've traded with. Even if it's 20%. So almost 60%, up to 60% of the trade with Russia that has happened in the last year under sanctions has not happened in a dollar.
Yes, sir.
And for them, I think it's important for the war to stop in order to increase this economic trade. Russia will benefit more if the war stops and then they start trading. Especially that the platform has been set. It has been set by BRICS. They are hosting BRICS in the next 4 weeks. You know, everybody will be ascending there. And I've seen members of NATO like France, they've raised their hands to say, please invite me. If I was President Putin, I wouldn't invite any NATO member state into this summit of BRICS in Russia. I would not take those chances to do that. Even I think also Russia should be very careful. If I was a Russian, I would advise the president to go and fight hard enough in the BRICS summit not to accept member states of the West easily. Because there's a lineup of countries from the West. Some of them are NATO member states who have applied. Some are friends of the West that we know that have lined up to join BRICS. If I was a Russian, even a Chinese, South Africa, you can't count it, shame. We can't. We go where the wind blows. But if I was a Russian, I would say to President Vladimir Putin, stop now. Go and fight. Go and talk, not to admit these people first. Let's first admit our friends, then our neutral countries. They can still trade with the West bilaterally, but to put them in the BRICS bloc, BRICS must not get excited about expansion.
Yes.
It may be swallowed by the same people of the G7 and the G20 that they are trying to run away from, that they are trying to counter. You can't just say, this company is dominating my company, therefore I'm going to form new partnership with another company. Then you invite the same people from the company that you are running away from. I don't think it's a good move.
Yes, sir.
But I think Russia is in a good position now to can start talking, you know, peace. And I know that Russia is not going to compromise. I've listened to the Russian ambassador in South Africa saying, we are not going to compromise on what led us to a military operation. That they will not compromise, but they can start engaging.
Yes.
And countries of the West are so compromised at the moment. Finland, Germany, France, and you know, all those other. UK itself, it's having a problem with its citizens that they are using, you know, their ailing economy to can fund the NATO war. And this is the opportunity to go and engage diplomatically when the enemy is compromised. Oh, the opposition is compromised. That's the art of what I spoke about earlier.
Absolutely.
Know when to engage the enemy militarily and know when to engage the enemy on a negotiation table. And I think this is the moment for the negotiation table. Both aggressors, NATO and Russia, have shown their muscle enough now for almost 2 years.
Yes.
That they can challenge each other. Whoa, guys, it's enough. Spare us your nukes. Reserve them for future. For now, we can go to the diplomatic table. That's my view on this issue.
Amen.
Thank you, brother man.
So we've been having on and off connection issues.
Okay.
But this episode will definitely be available to view for those that might have
online.
issues.
Okay. Yeah.
For those that might have had issues. In closing, brother, what are you looking forward to this week?
Well, brother man, not much happening. You know, things are going to be subtle. The UN and the Parliament is going to start working.
Yes, sir.
To this week, and those who went abroad will be coming back. the president and his delegation, if they are not yet back at.
Yes, sir.
You were saying 14 days to Tswana, or up to 14 days. I don't think it will happen within 14 days. I think they are going to wait for the last minute. So let's wait and see, Brahman. And I'm just happy with the viewers that we pulled another live episode, challenging one.
And you know, as much as we're having the challenges that we're having, we will iron them out, and we will, we'll get the rhythm that we need and that we want.
Exactly.
But we insist on a live show because we can deal with things that happened last night, this morning, and things that are happening as we do the episode.
As we do the episode. It's interesting. You know, I was listening to the news that I came here, and this news that we can discuss with the followers and the viewers.
Yes, sir.
And I hope all the glitches, you know, our technical team will be able to can handle all the glitches.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that Trevor and the team will be able to can have this episode as normal, be loaded in that people can watch after, even those who went to shops and funerals. Yes, one day we must get cameras on the opposite side and show people Trevor sitting there
pulling his hair out. Botsang, how do we get a hold of you?
Thanks, Fresh. It's on WhatsApp 08248599100. And
is that strictly for business, or
it's for business only?
Or proposals?
I don't know. Business proposals, yes, that I will take. And then on social media, it's at Botsang M, and on email, it's botsangm@gmail.com. Oh, by the way, you're asking what is also happening. It's month end.
Yes, sir.
I had opened a competition at the middle of last month for my 2 upcoming books that I had targeted kids between the age of 12 and 16 to can do the graphic design of the books. I've received about 16. I'm so disappointed. I expected more. 16 applications or contestants or proposals.
Okay.
And then I'm going to review them over this weekend. And then I will announce to those that which logo I think I will go. Not logo, the graphic
or design.
The design that I'll go with. Yes.
Great stuff.
There's one that really catch my eye, but I said, let me not get excited. Let me wait for others. The closing date is on the 31st. So I'm going to start looking at it. So next weekend, I'll probably announce on this platform who are the lucky ones.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, what a week. Hashtag Polytricks. Coming to you live from the Domboshaba mobile studio. If you'd like to hire the studio, email bookings@djfresh.com. bookings@djfresh.com. And for other business, email waw@africapodcastnetwork.com. Shout out to Pezulu Works, Trevor and his team for all of the videography. Shout out to Botsang, our political and analyst. And you for tuning in, for interacting, for subscribing, for liking, and for sharing far and wide. And last shout out to Kelezo Mudisakeng, our executive producer. I think until next week, have a wow week in spite of yourselves. And now we're going to stare directly into the camera awkwardly.
Is this hard?
I'm looking forward to this.
It's always an interesting. It's nice to do it on Saturday, man. There's a lot you can engage and talk about.
In fact, because you're a wine connoisseur and expect and everything else, I think once in a while you must like have a breakfast pairing, wines that you can pair.
I will love that.
I'm sure.
That I will love doing. I don't know whether it will be before Polytricks or after.
No, during.
Oh, during the show.
Yes.
No, that will be great.
In between topics, so like now we're gonna be swirling this Merlot that you can pair with your scrambled eggs.
I can see that you are not a wine person.
Nothing.
Are we allowed to can go offline? Hey, these guys. People are enjoying. Be done. Thank you, my brother. Interesting. So how does it work?
Yeah, as long as we don't discuss state secrets, because with these things, I'm sure the mics will still be going on.
Running in the background.
Running in the background.
When he stops there, he doesn't